Welcome back to Hannity. Amid all the campaign chaos, Newt Gingrich has picked up a much-needed endorsement from former Oklahoma Congressman J.C. Watts. Here to explain why he's chosen to throw his support behind the former speaker is none other than the man himself, former Congressman J.C. Watts. Welcome to the program. What's Newt got that the other guys don't have as far as you're concerned?
Well, Mark, thanks for having me on this evening, and let me say at the outset, I appreciate your work.
Likewise, thank you, Congressman.
You know, Mark, I am long past looking for my president or my presidential nominee to be my savior or to be my pastor. I am looking for someone that's prepared to do the heavy lifting to get us where we all want to be, and I think where we need to be. And when you consider in Washington today, around the country today, we're talking about balanced budgets, paying down our national debt, getting the economy going, you know, defending ourselves, activist judges. Newt Gingrich did all those things when he was Speaker. We got tax relief, we got balanced budgets, we got, you know, job creation, we paid down our national debt. And if you think about it, Mark, we hadn't done that since he left. So I think he's been there, done that, and I think he's a lot more seasoned person today than he was 15 years ago, and I know him well. He's a personal friend, and he asked me for an endorsement, and I chose to give it to him.
Now, you were part of the 1994 Gingrich Revolution generation. A lot of the people who were with you in the House back then don't feel that way about the Speaker and have come out on TV. And there's been this general line out of Washington that those who know the Speaker the best are the ones who've been most vehemently opposed to his resurgence. You're not part of that crowd. Why do you think you feel differently from so many of your former colleagues?
Well, Mark, you know, we live in a country that we can throw our support to whomever we want to throw our support to. I would caution all of us, or I would remind all of us, that any candidate that we support, they're going to be flawed. I think when you look at Romney, I mean, I could show you deep flaws there. When you look at Perry, I can show you deep flaws. When you look at you know, the gentleman, Congressman Paul, I could show you deep flaws. But when you talk about the track record, been there, done that, when you talk about balanced budgets, tax relief, paying down our national debt, Newt's done those things. And, you know, Mark, when you're Speaker of the House, you do make enemies. When you're in politics, you make enemies. You know, I would much rather tick off, you know, Washington politicians than to disappoint the American people. And when you look at the results that Newt Gingrich got when he was Speaker, he got results for the American people.
Now let's just go back to more recent years. Since you left Congress, you know Freddie Mac pretty well. You were up to your neck in dealings with Freddie Mac because you thought there should be more government oversight of Freddie Mac in recent years. And so you come at the controversy over Newt Gingrich's Freddie Mac connections from a slightly different direction. What's your perspective on that?
Well, Mark, I led the charge for 5-6 years to get reforms for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I was chairman of an organization called FM Policy Focus. And what we were saying was, if ever there was a blip in the housing market, Fannie and Freddie would destabilize the greatest economy in the world, and we had a meltdown of tremendous proportions, and we're still recovering from it today. In the 5-6 years, 7 years I was involved with that effort, I never heard Newt Gingrich's name. So if he was lobbying for Fannie and Freddie, he was a pretty pathetic lobbyist, in my opinion. I only heard his name associated with Freddie about a week ago. So again, I do think that was a cheap shot. It's interesting that you have candidates saying that you know, he was selling, it was legal bribery. Well, Mark, wouldn't you think if consulting for some corporation after you leave Congress, if that's legal bribery, why wouldn't giving someone a $5,000 campaign contribution, why couldn't you you make the connection to say that's a possible bribery. Now, it is a campaign contribution. I do believe that's free speech. I think it's protected under the First Amendment. But again, these type of things happen in campaigns, and you get these type of things. But Newt Gingrich was not the problem in trying to get reforms with Fannie and Freddie. It was collective neglect, in my opinion, by Republicans and Democrats both, who had votes and they were in decision-making positions over those organizations, and they chose to turn the other way.
Just quickly, Congressman, Dick Morris a few minutes ago compared Newt to Napoleon and said Napoleon was a brilliant guy, brilliant for the big picture guy, but forgot to have ordered up enough pairs of long underwear for the Moscow winter. And he thinks that basically organization-wise in Iowa and New Hampshire, Newt is in his retreat from Moscow. Organization-wise, he's at fault here.
Well, Mark, I do think he's got some work to do there, obviously, and I think when I think Governor Romney's got most of the establishment behind him, and he's run two well-organized, well-funded campaigns over the last 4 years. But with his organization, he hadn't gotten beyond 26% of the vote. So what does that say about someone that has the organization? I think it speaks just as well for Speaker Gingrich to be where he is in the process with what they claim as no organization as a candidate that has, that's raised $15 to $20 million, that's been in the arena twice in the last 4 years, but they're not getting more than 25% of the vote in most campaigns. This is going to be, as you know, Mark, this is a state-by-state race. Iowa kicks it off. They go to New Hampshire. They go to South Carolina. I think the speaker has to feel pretty good about where he is in Iowa, considering he's had $10, $12 million worth of advertising
and he's
on
still,
his back.
Yeah, he's still standing.
So he's done pretty well considering.
That's true. Okay, thank you for your endorsement, and I'm sure the speaker appreciates it immensely. J.C. Watson.
General Washington and his troops had been defeated in September, driven from Brooklyn to Manhattan, from Manhattan to north of New York City, around the Palisades, across New Jersey. They declined from 30,000 troops in September to 2,500 effectives on Christmas Day. Of the 2,500, 1/3 did not have boots. They were wearing burlap bags wrapped around their feet, and as they marched, they left a trail of blood. General Washington knew that if he didn't win a victory soon, the entire army would have disappeared. And so he had to do something desperate. He proposed to cross an icy river at night in a snowstorm and then march 9 miles in the dark to the city of Trenton, a village that had 800 German troops, professionals, Hessians. He was going to surprise them and capture them. It was a very dangerous plan. Because it was harder to get there than they thought, they were 4 hours late. And yet, as a sign of divine providence, there was an enormous snowstorm coming from the north, behind them, pushing them towards Trenton. A storm so enormous that the German troops said nobody could be out in this kind of weather. So they didn't post guards. They didn't muster at dawn as they normally would, because it was impossible. And for Europeans, it probably was impossible. But these were Americans. They were used to the American winter. They were used to deer hunting in the winter. They were used to traveling in the winter. This was just a terrible snowstorm. It wasn't a reason to stop. Washington's troops surprised the Germans, captured 800 of them at the cost of 1 American, and then ran for the river before the British Army could catch them, went across the river with their prisoners. Within 2 weeks, 15,000 volunteers showed up, and Washington began driving the British across New Jersey. The revolution had been saved. How big a gamble was it? That night, as they began to get in the boats, they were told that the password for that evening was victory or death, and they meant it. They were prepared to give everything for freedom. Surely, in the most successful country in history, we can do what is necessary. We can be in the spirit of General Washington and the Americans who fought for freedom. We can go out, get the vote out, make the argument, stand up for freedom. And I believe we can have as big an impact in helping America remain free in our generation as they did in theirs.